Upon the request of a person or a group, Cayce would enter a hypnotic concentration state at the appointed time. A stenographer would sit near him and record everything he said. The coordinator would provide Cayce with the current address of the person or group, whether in the same room or far away. When Cayce said, "We have found it," the information would be given. After completing the explanations and questions, the sleeping Cayce would say, "We are done here." Amazingly, Cayce, upon waking up, had no recollection of what he had said. Owing to his 8th grade education level, he even needed others' help to understand the recorded readings. In particular, he simply gave up the attempts to understand terms related to medicine, history, and geography. In the hypnotic concentration state, he was unconscious and lost all his 5 senses. Someone once publicly pricked him with a needle, and he only felt the pain after waking up. The readings are divided into physical readings and life readings. The former constitutes the majority, with over 9,000 cases, which provides information about a person's physical health and illnesses. The latter gives a summary and guidance on the impact of a person's previous life experiences on their current life. Typically, the process of physical readings would go as follows. When the coordinator saw Cayce's hands move from the head to the abdomen and his eyelids begin to flutter, he would begin to suggest. If the coordinator missed this signal, Cayce would enter a deeper trance and not respond. The coordinator would say, "You shall find a certain person in a certain place. You shall go over his body carefully and examine it thoroughly. Tell me the conditions you find, provide the causes, and propose a treatment plan. You shall speak clearly at a normal pace and answer the questions I ask." Other readings followed a similar pattern. Usually, Cayce would say, "We have found this entity." If the person had been read before, Cayce would add, "We have seen this entity before." This "before" referred to the last reading, which could be weeks ago, years ago, or even 30 years ago. Cayce knew it because he had seen it before. Cayce had provided over 2,000 life readings, with reincarnation as their cornerstone. It is the actions, words, and thoughts from your past lives that shape who you are and how you are today. The readings indicated that the intertwining of karma, free will, destiny, and grace determines your future. Where did the information in Cayce's readings come from? Cayce only had an 8th grade education. Beyond the Bible, his reading was quite limited. His hobbies were simply fishing and gardening. His photographer job seemed unrelated. His social circle was not made up of knowledgeable people. So where did his diverse and comprehensive information come from? In 1910, Dr. Wesley H. Ketchum, Cayce's first official collaborator, applied for a reading on this matter and explained to the New York Times, "Similar to others' subconscious, Cayce's subconscious during hypnosis, concentration, also complies with the suggestions and guidance of the coordinator or hypnotist. Meanwhile, his subconscious can communicate with and access information from the subconscious of the person being read." We know that the subconscious never forgets. It memorizes at a speed that the conscious mind cannot perceive. For example, human eyes perceive no gaps in the frames of a film passing at a rate of 24 to 30 frames per second. but the subconscious can remember every frame. A hypnotist can easily guide his patients to recall events beyond their conscious memory, such as a rainy night at the age of 3, a birthday party at the age of 2, or even the hospital room when they were born, and the surrounding doctors and nurses. A skilled hypnotist can even bring his patients back to the experiences in their past lives to help address their current physical and psychological suffering. Moreover, some hypnotists can guide his patients to experiences between 2 lifetimes and more. In summary, the human subconscious is the memory repository for all our thoughts, words, and actions from the beginning to the present. Cayce said that anyone who has been trained can do this. Through communication with the patient's subconscious, Cayce's subconscious could get the corresponding physical and geographical information, the patient's pajama at that time, their blood pressure, pulse, the functioning and issues of each part of their body, as well as events from their past lives, relationships with others, thought patterns, etc. This was the first source of information in Cayce's readings. Another source of information for Cayce's readings is the Book of Life, also known as the Akashic Records. The readings explained that this is not a written record, but an activity log recorded on the skein of time and space. Cayce and some other psychics can access part of these records. This is the primary source of information for Cayce's life readings. Sometimes fragments of these records are also shown in our dreams. The third source of information refers to the entities in the spirit realm, including those who haven't been reincarnated and those who have passed away. In response to the question of whether it's possible to communicate with spiritual entities, Cayce said in one reading, after a soul leaves the physical realm, it would stay in that realm until its development reaches a certain level to move forward or returns here for perfection. When they are within this space or range of communication, any entity can communicate with them. On October the 9th, 1933, in reading 5756-9, an entity with a British accent delivered a message through Cayce. On July the 9th, 1934, at the end of a physical reading for a relative of Mrs. Cayce, Cayce said that some entities wanted to communicate. When Mrs. Cayce, the coordinator of the reading, agreed, everyone present heard only half of the conversation, as if Cayce was on the phone. Later, it was revealed that a group of entities, including Mrs. Cayce's grandmother, uncles, brother, and Cayce's deceased son, who had lived only a few months, came to communicate. It seemed they were preparing for the next reincarnation. Of course, most importantly, there was an entity named Michael who, in reading 262 series, repeatedly conveyed spiritual messages through Cayce. This Michael claimed to be the Archangel, the Lord of the Way. In this information source, Cayce was the medium. In one reading, Cayce answered the question, what is meant by the Book of Life? The record that the individual entity itself writes upon the skein of time and space through patience, it is opened when self has attuned to the infinite and may be read by those attuned to that consciousness. In some other readings, we learn that actions, words, and thoughts are all objects that leave imprints on the skein of time and space. Like tuning a radio to a certain frequency to receive a particular station. If we tune ourselves properly, we can also access the skein of time and space. Cayce said there were ancient civilizations. In the life readings conducted for over 1,600 individuals, more than 700 were mentioned to have past life experiences in Atlantis or Lemuria. According to the readings, Lemuria was an ancient continent spanning the Pacific Ocean, while Atlantis was an ancient continent extending from the Mediterranean to the present Caribbean. There is more information in the readings about Atlantis, partly thanks to Edgar Evans, the second son of Cayce, who is still alive. The experiences in Atlantis in his life reading aroused his interest in exploring this civilization. The Atlantis described in Cayce's readings was much earlier than the mention by Plato in his Timaeus and Critias of Atlantis over 9,000 years ago. In fact, the time when the last major island of Atlantis sank into the Atlantic Ocean is described in his readings, aligned precisely with Plato's account. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans began to live in Atlantis. According to the readings, about 50,000 years ago, Atlantis already had advanced technology, surpassing today's achievements. The transportation at that time was extremely fast, silent, using energy from space instead of gasoline. However, due to moral decline, misuse, and abuse of resources and technology, the Earth's poles shifted and Atlantis experienced two major catastrophes, 50,000 years ago and 28,000 years ago, causing most of the continent to sink into the present Atlantic Ocean. Especially in the latter one, the readings said that it led to the Great Flood recorded in the Bible and other ancient texts. Finally, the third and last catastrophe occurred over 10,000 years ago, causing Atlantis' largest island, Poseidia, to completely sink into the Atlantic Ocean. However, the readings didn't leave us completely disappointed. The Atlanteans fled to other places with their records, leading to cultural revivals in Egypt, Yucatan, Maya, and other regions. The readings even provided 3 current locations which stored these records: in a temple of Poseidia, which would rise from the sea near Florida, in the Yucatan region of America, and in an undiscovered hall of records in the Egyptian pyramids. Cayce predicted that humans would find the location of Atlantis in 1968. Remarkably, in 1968, an underwater road built with square boulders in the Bimini Islands in the Atlantic Bahamas was accidentally discovered, known as the Bimini Road. This discovery reminded people of Cayce because the Atlantis described by him exactly covered this area. Cayce said that the developments of technology and material civilization are pushing humanity towards destruction. In his prophecies, he said that in the new century, technology and material civilization would develop even more rapidly, but people would become more greedy and selfish. Competitions, wars, and disasters would intensify, and fevers would spread. Medical treatments would fail, and many animals and plants consumed by humans would be toxic. However, a therapy of the heavenly voice would emerge to save humanity. Cayce said that due to the deterioration of humanity, within the 21st century, Atlantis would rise again. The east and west coasts of America, as well as Europe, would disappear, sink. Yet, he said, there will be hope in the east. In other words, there will be huge changes in landform. How did the timeline of human evolution look like in Cayce's readings? According to the readings, before humanity came to Earth, the planet had gone through the kingdom of plants and the kingdom of animals. Around 10.5 million years ago, souls, humans, came to Earth, initially in the thought forms, which could travel and play here and there freely. As time passed, their vibrational frequency decreased, and they gradually solidified in the bodies of animals and plants. While enjoying physical stimuli and the accompanying suffering, we gradually forgot who we were. 200,000 years ago, a salvation plan began. Humans entered the bodies of anthropoids, which had been evolving for a long time, marking the advent of the human era. 5 human races appeared on Earth simultaneously: yellow, white, brown, black, and red, Atlanteans. By 28,000 years ago, the technological development caused huge changes to Earth, represented by the sinking of Atlantis, bringing a catastrophic flood to Earth. The following is about death. Cayce had mentioned many times that death is simply stepping through another door to God. Our bodies will decay because they are not from eternity. They come from dust and return to dust. However, the body is not us. It's just a vessel we use to experience and learn in the here and now. We are souls with immortal spirituality from eternity to eternity. We use our bodies just like a driver drives a car. The car is not the driver, and the body is not us. Yet we should take care of our bodies so that we can have more time for learning and experiencing. Don't complain about the car, the road, or others. Take care of yourself and don't harm others. When you finally walk through God's another door, you will find how ridiculous the fear of death is. Next time, maybe you will choose a special car. How about a red Ferrari? According to Cayce's readings, we are created in the image of God. We once possessed the same divine power and free will. However, with this power and free will, we chose to glorify and express ourselves and turn away from God. Now we are striving to find the way home. Science is exploring outwardly, while religion is leaning inwardly, which is purely personal experiences. All religions come from God's salvation plan. Science is a pursuit of truth. Learning and studying all religions require a scientific spirit, a spirit that seeks truth honestly. Here are 10 prophecies by Cayce about the 21st century. Number 1. A new medical approach will emerge, a transformative therapy based on spirituality and the body's energy system. Number 2. The continuity of life will be widely accepted as fact. Humans undergo reincarnations. In this century, the entire world will acknowledge the continuity of life. Number 3. Science and metaphysics will stop arguing with each other. Number 4. Social equilibrium will be accepted globally. Social equilibrium is not an average or ideal state. It is a state where there is no exploitation, no oppression, and no huge wealth gap. In other words, everyone has a sense of social responsibility, strives to contribute as much as possible, and is less selfish. Hence, the society will enter the state of equilibrium. Number 5. Dramatic changes in landform. Number 6. The international centre will shift to the east, and mainland China will play a crucial role. Number 7. Archaeological discoveries about ancient civilizations will gradually change people's understanding of human history. Number 8. The widespread use of intuition and spiritual abilities. By then, the entire world will, like India in the past, consider spiritual practice the most revered thing, and people will believe in spiritual abilities. Many individuals will be able to directly connect with the spiritual realm and apply spiritual practice in their daily lives. The 20th century was a materialistic century, with a strong belief in science, technology, and materialism. Now it's 2022. Over the next 10 to 20 years, the world will change dramatically, and people will start to believe in reincarnation and spiritual practice. Number 9. The oneness principle will become the parameter for all human affairs. The concept of oneness will guide religions, the energy of oneness will guide sciences, and the overall oneness concept of humanity will become the core of political affairs. Number 10. The most important, the second coming of Christ. Throughout history, very few people can be called sages. Cayce, in his readings, mentioned the second coming of Christ, and in his prophecies about China, he mentioned that China would become the cradle of Christianity as applied in the lives of men. Connecting these two messages, it can be concluded that the returning Christ will be born in China. China will be deeply influenced by him, and the world will be deeply influenced by China. That is to say, in the 21st century, humanity will go through a period of renewal or adjustment, and then enter a new golden age. A group of sages will come to help people all over the world so that they can elevate significantly in this lifetime, and numerous people will be saved. All right, we'll conclude the discussion on Cayce's prophecies for now.